Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. And man, do we have everything cool personified in Sam Witwer as our guest today. He has been literally in everything cool over the years. We've got a lot to talk about with Sam, and it's going to be a blast. I have a couple things to remind you of, though. We've got the glass Blu-ray contest. It always sounds like I'm talking about a Blu-ray that's made out of glass. It's about the movie. It's the M. Night Shyamalan movie, Glass Blu-ray contest on our Facebook page. You can enter to win one of those at facebook.com/electric playground. And we are going to get started right now with your rundown, which is dedicated to Scott Howard, who says, I've been watching you since I was 10, which I hope was only like 5 years ago or something like that. Not a long time ago. But Scott, thank you so much for watching. Let's get started with your rundown. It looks like it's the shaky launch of Anthem hasn't moved EA and BioWare away from online games. The next Dragon Age game is rumored to be introducing online multiplayer elements and might even be an online-only game. That's according to a new report in Kotaku, which, citing unnamed sources at BioWare, claims that the new Dragon Age is being built with the same code base as Anthem, and as such is being made with the online games as service model in mind. Some sources claim that the plan is to make it an online game that will also let users play by themselves if they want a more traditional Dragon Age experience, but the report stresses that the project is still in the early stages of development, so things might change. Whatever it ends up being, it's likely still at least a few years away, so don't expect official details anytime soon. EA and BioWare cannot drop the ball with the new Dragon Age game. They cannot have another controversial launch. They cannot focus, on just how they're going to monetize and all the loot boxes. They can't tell that story again, especially with this franchise. Has been single-player focused and has really been about immersing people in story and not getting them lost in all the different ways that they're going to spend more money, and it's going to suck up all their time just to kind of, keep you on that sort of loot cycle. They can't do that with Dragon Age. People will not stand for it, and I really hope that all of these really painful and difficult lessons that EA and BioWare have been learning about Anthem is steering them back in the direction of making more single-player story-based games, which is what they excel at. That's what we want out of BioWare. That's why we love this company and this studio. I don't think we're going to forget this one, EA or BioWare. If you're thinking we can place this one a couple of years away from now and everything will be changed and you can kind of sneak this one out, you can't do that. You got to make us exceedingly happy with Dragon Age. And I'll tell you what, I think BioWare that's what their mindset is too, and I think absolutely that's what they're going to do. I have faith in these guys. They've had a couple of knocks with Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda, but it's still an incredible studio over there. Now, DC's Shazam had a big opening weekend, and you know what that means? Sequel. A follow-up to the new superhero adventure is already in the works. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the first film screenwriter, Henry Gayden, has begun working on the script, with director David F. Sandberg and producer Peter Safran also expected to return. No official announcements have been made, but don't be surprised if that changes soon. DC is also working on sequels to Aquaman and Wonder Woman, not to mention Suicide Squad 2 and Birds of Prey, while new films from their most famous heroes, Batman and Superman, have yet to be given green lights. We do know that the Batman movie that Matt Reeves is working on is coming, and I think we'll probably hear lots of news around Comic-Con and through the summer and maybe leading up to Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie. I'm very happy for the Shazam crew. I think they killed it with the film. I wasn't happy about every single choice in that movie. I didn't really love all of the kid stuff, the foster kid stuff at the beginning. I felt like it was a little too forced. But I really, really liked Zachary Levi as Shazam. I think he did an awesome job, and he was so funny, and there were lots of great moments in there. It brought me back to loving Greatest American Hero back on television back in the day. Nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. You guys remember Greatest American? Who remembers Greatest American Hero? Anybody? Like two people? Okay, yes. No, I love that show. Oh, they're singing the song. That's amazing. Yeah, I love that show, and I think that Shazam captured a lot of that magic. It was great. So I definitely want them to carry on, and maybe they get a little more than that less than $100 million that they got to make the first movie, and they just beef it up with new effects, and probably The Rock as Black Adam. So it will be monstrously large, this sequel, and the expectations for it. Now, over on the small screen, a different kind of comic book adaptation is leaving the pulpit. The TV series Preacher, based on the Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon comic series, is coming to an end. AMC has officially announced that the upcoming 4th season of the show will be its last, and that shouldn't come as too big of a surprise. Preacher has seen a drop in ratings and almost didn't get renewed at all, so at least fans will get a final season that wraps up the story. It's also worth pointing out that the Preacher comic series only consisted of 75 issues, so the show doesn't have an endless amount of source material to draw from. The 4th and final season premieres this August. I've seen only a couple of episodes of Preacher. There are a billion shows on the air right now that I am fascinated by, interested in, or addicted to. Sam Witwer, I think, is in all of them, which is kind of crazy. He's got roles in all of these shows. But Preacher was cool, what I saw. I guess I, at this point, wait for the whole season and the whole series to wrap up, and then I deep dive and binge it all when it all hits Netflix or something. I love the fact that Seth Rogen is one of the guys behind this show, and I forget the guy's name that stars as Preacher. What's his name? Anybody? Bueller? Nobody knows. He was Howard Stark in the MCU movies. Oh, Dominic Cooper. He's a great actor, and he does a great job there. So I'm happy for the cast and crew. They know when it's ending, which is always a good thing. That means they can kind of, aim for that bullseye and try to finish the show off strong. But I have to admit, I'm way behind on my Preacher watching. All right, let's talk about video games now. You don't need to use the Force to get a new look at the next big Star Wars game. Titanfall and Apex Legends developer Respawn Entertainment has dropped a brief new look at the upcoming Star Wars game, Jedi Fallen Order. They've released a teaser image that shows what appears to be a broken lightsaber above glowing runes with the caption, "Don't stand out." This tagline makes sense given the game's setting and characters. It takes place between the events of the prequel and original trilogies, with players taking the role of a young Jedi Padawan on the run from the evil Empire. The first gameplay from Jedi Fallen Order will be shown off at Star Wars Celebration this weekend, and the game itself hits stores this fall. This is a big one. This game could have been called Star Wars Redemption from Electronic Arts. And I don't mean to say that they made a bad game with Battlefront 2. Sam Witwer's in that, by the way. He's in everything. I'm telling you. But I really enjoyed Star Wars Battlefront 2, but of course we know that there were problems with the way that game was launched. But Respawn has been killing it with Apex Legends. Of course, they are an EA-owned studio right now, and EA has got to put their best foot forward with the way that they're being received by gamers out there. And Star Wars fans who were really rooting for the stuff that both Amy Hennig and Jade Raymond were working on, and then suddenly, nope, those aren't coming, and they're all changed. So there's a lot of pressure and hype and expectation on this team and this game, and we're going to see all kinds of stuff about it on Saturday, and I can't wait. Respawn is one of my favorite developers in the world right now, and Titanfall 2, when that came out, that was our game of the year that year. You guys know I love that. These guys know how to make action games, and presumably they'll know how to use force powers and make something super, super fun. And don't be surprised if our guest, Sam Witwer, has a role in this game, which he cannot tell us about. But don't worry, he's going to be up right away. We're just going to take a look at this day in Everything Cool. Welcome to This Day in Everything Cool for April 9th. This day in 1860 was the first day that we can hear about from someone, literally. French inventor Edouard Léon Scott de Martinville used his new invention called the phonautograph to record the sound of someone talking, making it the oldest known recording of an audible human voice. Let's take a listen. As you can tell, the recording isn't as clear as what we're used to today. The phonautograph detected sound vibrations in the air and then used them to make indents and grooves in pieces of parchment. You could then drag a stylus over those indents to create vibrations that would sound kind of like what they sounded like in the first place. The basic concept of the phonautograph served as the inspiration for other, more modern sound recording devices. A few decades later, Thomas Edison perfected the design with the phonograph, which could record much clearer sounds. April 9th, 1959 really had the right stuff. NASA officially announced the 7 astronauts who would take part in Project Mercury, the first human spaceflight program of the United States. The 7 astronauts were John Glenn, Scott Carpenter, Gordon Cooper, Gus Grissom, Wally Schirra, Alan Shepard, and Deke Slayton. All of them were chosen for their experience as test pilots in the U.S. Air Force and Navy, as well as their physical and mental stamina. The Mercury 7 astronauts didn't actually get into space right away. They spent several years on Earth testing out experimental rockets and spacecraft. The first one to actually get into space was John Glenn on February 20th, 1962, but by that point, the Russians had actually beaten the Americans, having sent up their own astronaut, Yuri Gagarin, a year earlier. The exploits of the Mercury 7 were dramatized in the 1983 film The Right Stuff. Unnamed sources and FBI leaks have brought down an American president at least once, and on April 9th, 1976, movie audiences got to see how. All the President's Men was released in theaters based on the best-selling book of the same name from Washington Post journalists Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. The film starred Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman as Woodward and Bernstein, and like the book, it chronicles how the pair discovered and investigated the infamous Watergate scandal from U.S. President Richard Nixon. The pair were aided by a mysterious source codenamed Deep Throat, who decades later was revealed to be FBI Associate Director Mark Felt.
Just follow the money.
Who told them that Nixon employed burglars to break into the rival DNC headquarters in the Watergate Hotel. The break-in and subsequent obstruction of justice on Nixon's part led to his downfall as president, showing that no one is above the law.
Okay, we go with it.
Classing this show up with a little Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman right there. That's super cool. And what's happening here? Our guest on the show might look a little bit familiar because you've seen him in a million things. His name is Sam Witwer, and I think you might be familiar with this character that he plays in a couple of things. Have you ever seen this guy before?
Doesn't ring a bell, no.
No, doesn't ring a bell? Nope, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Very, very nice stuff. Thank you. Oh, there,
So
see,
kind.
look at that.
So kind of
That,
you.
he's treating you with the respect you deserve.
That's amazing.
Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Sam and I have been talking. You were on the show last year, but you Skyped in, and it was one of my favorite interviews of the year.
What did I say?
Well, we talked about Star Wars, and we went deep dive into a lot of things because
Yes.
you don't just play this guy. You live this life.
Right.
You know, you aren't just somebody that's sort of tangentially involved with Star Wars. You carry it with you.
Well, you know, when our generation was born into it. We had no choice.
Yes.
So there it is. It sort of stays with you. Yeah.
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 And was it right from the beginning? Was it episode 4?
Episode 4, yeah. In fact, we had on our wood-paneled VCR that would make a whirring sound when you pound it on. It would go.
Yes.
And we had a bootlegged copy. In fact, first we had
Does
a bootleg.
Lucasfilm know that? They do now. That's awesome.
I think.
Lucas
I've paid
Sam
them
Witwer.
since.
Yeah.
I bought it on Blu-ray. It's cool. No, but we had, because back in the day they would set up camera equipment in theaters and film it. So we had a really crappy Blu-ray copy of Star Wars before it was available. So my friends would always come to my house into my basement. You know, like the Stranger Things crew would all gather in, and we would all watch Star Wars.
That's awesome. Really I almost asked you if you saw Star Wars in the theater because I think
during one of the re-releases.
Oh, the re-releases.
Yeah, because they re-released that all the time when I was little. You know.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing that in the theater, and I'm like, yeah, but I wouldn't have when it came out.
Not in '77.
Yeah. So they
But they did bring it back.
Yeah.
And we used to have this sense of like anticipation, and we would fill in the blanks with our own fiction.
Right.
Now we don't have time to keep up with it all.
No, there's no time.
But it's kind of beautiful as well, right? I mean, we have Star Wars. I think Lucas rightly knows it doesn't just belong to him, clearly, but it belongs to all of us now.
Yeah, that's true. The ownership has been passed. I mean, now a lot of people have gotten their grubby mitts on it, including myself to some small degree.
Yeah.
I've got a little corner of my fingerprint on the, canvas.
Yes.
Which I find I feel very lucky for.
Was The Force Unleashed your first?
That was the first one. Yeah,
first thing.
and we met at the Wrench.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
10 years ago.
Well, we met before then because we met you at Star Wars Celebration, whatever the first year was.
Right,
and you were just this young upcoming actor, and it was like we were interviewing you, and you look at the box art for the game. It's like, this is surreal. They didn't put actors in games.
That was a new thing. Yeah, it shocked me when Lucasfilm basically said that we believe that the physicality of the actor and the voice are married in a certain special way, and we want to maintain that.
Yeah.
which as an actor and our tremendous egos were like, yes, of course that's true. But it wasn't something that people did back then. And I look, there's probably someone somewhere that did it before us, but to my knowledge, we were the first. And in fact, now that I hear myself say that, we were absolutely the first.
I think you were the
no
first.
No one even thought of doing it before we did. In fact, it was my idea.
It was your idea, and it was a very successful idea.
Yeah, Force Unleashed was a lot of fun, and it was great because Hayden Blackman wrote this wonderful script that I got a chance to study up on. I mean, it was like a Star Wars movie quality script, and then we shot it, and it was really fun.
Incredible script. He's running Hangar 13 right now, and he's working on Borderlands stuff. And
that's right.
Are you still in touch with a lot of the Force Unleashed crew?
We bump into each other, and a lot of those people are still working at Lucasfilm.
Right.
So
and David Collins has become a lifelong friend of yours, right?
David Collins, yeah. Well, we were friends before the Force Unleashed.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah, in fact, it was through his tomfoolery that I even got cast in that.
Okay.
Because there was a big meeting where an artist named Amy Beth Christensen created a painting of what Starkiller, what they ideally wanted him to be like.
Right.
You know, they'll create concept art sometimes before they hire an actor.
Yes.
And David took one look at the concept art and was like, God, that looks like Sam. It really looks like him. So he's like, some of your head. I was at my brother's like rehearsal dinner for his wedding, and I get this really mysterious phone call. He's like, I'm like, yeah, my brother's rehearsal meeting. He's like, can you step out for a second? I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he said, hey man, so Darth Vader has the secret apprentice. I'm like, what? He's like, never mind. Just send me your resume and your headshot and your reel. And so I did. And so he apparently just like snuck down the hall.
That's
and
great.
Then walked away like nothing happened or something. He snuck it into the pile.
That's awesome.
And because my headshot looked at the same haircut, the shaved head and everything.
Because you had just been on Battlestar.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
Did
Battlestar
you
was
have the crash down cut?
Yeah.
And the look. Yeah.
There was a guest star I did, I think, a little bit before that made me. I think that's what I shaved my head for, so like NCIS or something like that. And then that became the Battlestar thing.
Yeah.
And then the Battlestar thing, I still had that, which is, by the way, glorious. If you ever just buzz it all off.
Yeah. I think about that sometimes.
It's so amazing.
Yes.
You just wake up in the morning and you're like, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, because you're in the spiky hair club too. Not so much now, but yes, it's.
Let's talk about haircuts.
Let's talk about hair and gel and hairspray. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But so you were already a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And you were in that club. But what's cool about you is that lots of things, but you were in Battlestar, Star Trek, and Star Wars.
Star Trek very, very briefly.
Still.
But I got to do face prosthetics, so I know a little bit about like what my friend Ken Mitchell goes through as
right. And they're killing it on Discovery right now. Yeah. I saw you tweeting at Anson Mount there. I
just hung out with Ken Mitchell today. We talked all about his Borath Klingon monk Tenevek.
Amazing.
So I'm like, well, and what's cool is Ken, when he was getting the role, he was a Star Trek fan, but he wasn't like a devotee.
Yeah.
I am a little bit.
Yeah.
So he said, Can we talk about Klingons? I'm like, come on over. And then we would just watch all of the episodes starting from the original series. I'm like, now that's John Colicos. He was the first Klingon cat, And he played Boltar on Battlestar Galactica. And Ken is just such a smart guy. He was just like absorbing all of it. And now I sit with Ken and we talk Klingons and he knows way more than me. The student has surpassed the teacher.
That is amazing. Have you thought of like opening up a school to teach people how to be nerds in Hollywood? to like, give them the lore and how to approach this stuff? Because what's amazing with you is that you'll start as Starkiller, but then you're Palpatine and Darth Maul and a bunch of other roles, and it's like you're making pals at Lucasfilm, and they keep asking you back to do a whole bunch of things.
That was really what it was. Is Dave Filoni asked me to play a character called the Sun in the Mortis trilogy of Clone Wars episodes. And I did that, and it was confusing. I didn't know at first what the hell was going on, and Ashley and Matt Lanter and James Arnold Taylor are so dialed in on their characters.
Yes.
And I had just become a Clone Wars fan. I didn't start as a Clone Wars fan.
Yes, yeah.
I kind of watched it and was like, I'm glad they're doing this, but it's not for me. But then they started hitting on some really cool things. Yeah. And I started getting drawn into it, and that was when they called me up. So I went and I did that, and I think the first day on set, or in the vocal booth, Matt Lanter does this incredible thing where he talks to his dead mother.
Yep.
And he says something to Shmi Skywalker. Anakin says to Shmi Skywalker, who he hasn't seen since she died at the hands of the Tusken Raiders, he goes, I have a wife. I want you to meet her. And they do this incredible emotional performance.
Yeah.
And then afterward, he's like, all right, moving on, says Dave Filoni. And I raise my hand like a kid in school. And he's like, yeah, new kid. What? And I'm like, yeah, Shmi and Padme have already met. I want you to meet her. They already met. And then I just see Dave go. And then I look over, and Ashley and Matt are all looking at me, and Ashley just goes, I've never seen someone out-geek Dave Filoni before. And at that point, Dave's like, right. And then he changed the dialogue. But what it simply was that they're working so fast. Dave knew that.
Yes.
But they're working so fast. I was like, boom, 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 boom. Okay, go. And then it's like, oh, right. No, of course. So at that point, I think that's when Dave was like, all right, we're going to keep this guy around.
That's awesome.
And after we finished The Son, I remember we did a pickup session. And the rumor was that Darth Maul had survived.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, so what do you think about Darth Maul surviving? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. And then he goes, cool. Well, anyway, nice to see you. We might have something for you in the future. And I had no idea that those were related thoughts.
Wow.
And then a year later, he calls me up and he goes, okay, so listen, man, I need Darth Maul. Can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, sure, great idea. No, that's the only way to do it. And it was simply, we were worried, very worried, because the fans don't like it when you mess things up. So we're like, and we know that, so we stressed about it for months.
Yeah.
And talked about it for months before we recorded anything. So, yeah.
When you saw the concepts of how Maul came back, were you, as a fan, were you freaking out?
Well, yeah, George Lucas sort of created this story where in order to get him back from the dead, you have to sort of go down into hell and pluck him out, and he's messed up from what he's been through. So I thought that was very cool.
Reminded me of Gollum a little bit. Right?
A little bit, a little bit of that, a little bit Colonel Kurtz having, we improvised all that cave speak. So I just was in front of the I was in the vocal booth just making all kinds of weird mumblings, and I very proudly I mumbled little pieces of the Sith code. Yeah. Because I knew that if it made it into the episode, then it was canon.
Oh my
so
goodness.
I made the Sith code canon. Yes.
How did you know what the Sith code was?
Because I'm a geek.
Yeah.
Because I'm a total nerd.
And you knew how to say it?
Well, there was a line in Mortis where one of the characters on the dark side. Well, the son actually says. Yeah. The chains of these. He refers to chains in the Mortis thing.
Yes.
And in the Sith code, there's this whole thing, through victory, my chains are broken. If I'm getting that right, I might remember it wrong, but something about my chains are broken.
Yes.
And so I made sure that I'm like, what would he be doing in this cave if he's mumbling to himself? Well, he would be like having imaginary conversations with his master and going through his training. So I mumbled pieces of that code.
Amazing.
Dave and I are not convinced there is a Sith code.
Right.
But then I was like, but let's make it canon.
Well,
let's just do it.
If anybody's going to create that code, it's going to be you two guys.
Well, I mean, I can't remember who actually put that out the first time. They deserve credit. But you know what? That's just like everything else. I'll take credit for it.
Yeah, of course.
That's fine.
That's what this show's all about.
That's taking credit for everything you don't deserve, yeah.
So Maul comes back,
yeah.
And then you have this task of not just making him a cool character, but a character that's relatable to people. I mean, you and the writers and Filoni and the whole team there. But was that just a thrill for you to kind of, personalize it, to make it something?
It was always a thrill, but it was an added thrill when it worked for the fans.
Yeah.
Because we knew that the Spider Maul thing was going to shock a lot of people.
Right.
And some very protective fans would go, well, that's not Darth Maul. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And we said, well, no, you're going to get the Darth Maul that you think you want.
Yeah.
But you can't get him right away. If it was literally in the Clone Wars and, he gets cut in half in Phantom Menace and then he shows up and he's like, I'm back. Yeah. That's the lamest piece of storytelling ever. There's got to be a real cost to what happened.
Yes.
And so Dave and George decided that it was an opportunity to explain how Darth Vader exists, behind what goes on inside that helmet,
right,
and how he holds himself together. So George's opinion is these Sith Lords, they're so hard to kill.
Yeah.
And it's simply, because they're
evil and hate.
They're evil, hatred. Yeah. Their combat skills are unsurpassed. Even Palpatine says in Revenge of the Sith, get help. You're no match for them. They're Sith Lord. That whole thing. And but George really wanted to make the point that the biggest reason the Sith are so hard to kill is because they're so selfish and so self-obsessed.
Yes.
that they think, well, if I die, then I lose everything.
Yeah.
I'll lose all my wealth, my power, things that the things that make me, myself.
Well, and they live for revenge too, right?
They live for revenge, but they live to fill that empty hole inside them with more stuff. They keep accumulating and accumulating relationships, accumulating power. In the case of Palpatine, accumulating a galactic government. And it's never enough. They're never actually happy, but they think, well, but if I just get more, I can, and so
they're
it's
consumers.
That drive. Yeah, they are. It's that drive that keeps the Sith alive, because they can't conceive of a life after death. Whereas the Jedi are like, ironically, they're like, it doesn't concern us whether we pass on into the Force and we speak from. It's not what we're about. We're selfless. We're trying to make a difference while we're here. And whatever happens to me doesn't really matter. It's about sacrifice. And ironically, through that sacrifice, it's a more fulfilled life, and then you live a life that's worth remembering.
Yes.
And if you live a life that's worth remembering, that's what the Obi-Wan Kenobi ghost is all about.
Right.
Inspiring subsequent generations through the acts of your life.
Yes.
That's what Use the Force Luke is all about. I think.
Well, you've got a pretty good insider's kind of perspective on this.
I can't speak for George, but I do know that he made a very definite decision during the Mortis episodes that the Sith could not project past their own life. You could see echoes of them maybe if you were afraid enough and you're in Korriban or Moraband or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
There could be weird hallucinations, but that's not really them. Whereas the Jedi that do achieve that is in fact
because they exist outside of their mortal coil.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So it's great to hear that George was a part of all of those discussions all the time. He wasn't super. I mean, I'm sure that he was busy with a lot of other things, but he was there.
It's not widely. It's not as. It shocks me because it's not as widely known how involved George was with the Clone Wars. That was his show.
Right.
That was him going, let's mess around with Star Wars and let's see what else is possible in Star Wars. So he would come up with these crazy stories. That's why it keeps spreading out into different directions. You see stuff that you never imagined could be part of Star Wars. It's because Jet Lucas said something to me once, and it was just brilliant. He said, do you want to know why the Clone Wars is so good? I'm like, yes. Why? Oh, you tell me. Come on, Jet. What is it? And he said, because Clone Wars is made by a guy who is sick of Star Wars. And I was like, that's genius, because George never ever wanted to repeat himself.
Yeah.
So that's George going, experimenting, being an experimental filmmaker inside of Star Wars, trying to figure out how many different genres can you reach within the framework of Star Wars.
But also creating really integral webbing, like really connecting all kinds of things and adding meaning to other movies that maybe we had written off.
Right, and well, that was the thing, and Dave and George. Dave is a genius, that guy.
Yep.
And I'm so happy that he is finally getting the recognition and the responsibility for, commensurate with the abilities that he has.
Yes.
Him working on Mandalorian and directing episodes and all that stuff and being quite in charge with Jon Favreau.
That's amazing.
But the thing with Dave, and he said something to me, and this was extremely instructive in terms of the way that George Lucas's mind works and the way that Dave's mind works. He goes, I'm going to do my bad Dave Filoni impression. He goes, the thing is about ideas and seeing something new is like there's a lot of people out there that are great at riffing at ideas that already exist, and people go, wow, that's genius. And then someone else comes along and says, yeah, but what if Darth Vader had, a third cousin and he knows, so-and-so, and couldn't you imagine this? And then it goes all the way back to Luke, and you go, whoa, and your mind explodes. And you go, that's a brilliant idea. Or someone says, why wasn't Phantom Menace? What if this happened instead? And they give themselves all this credit for riffing on an idea that's already out there.
Right.
And he says, what I learned in working for George is he'll throw an idea out at you. And sometimes you go, whoa, that's genius. But a lot of times you go, that doesn't make any sense. I don't see how that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't see how what does that do? And then he said, but the truth of the matter is, that's what he's been doing his entire career. He'll throw an idea out, and the reason you can't tell that it's a great idea is because you've never seen it before.
Right.
So then it's your job to dive in and work as hard as you can to create within the framework of this idea that you don't know how it works because you've never seen it.
Yeah.
It doesn't refer to a character that you love, or it has a different relationship or something totally different.
Well, that's
so once you do the work,
that's lore building. I
Right,
mean, that's
exactly.
what we want as fans.
And once you build up that work and you do that, and if you do it right,
Yeah.
then you have created a new thing that other people will then riff off of.
Absolutely.
But that's, it's interesting because there's a lot of brilliant work out there that is riffing quite brilliantly on existing material. I was thinking of Shaun of the Dead, for example.
Yeah.
That is an amazing riff.
Yes.
On the zombie thing.
Yes.
But yeah, the difference between that kind of thing and what George does is that he's very experimental and he doesn't want to repeat himself, and he comes up with stuff that sometimes you just like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Let's dive into it. Let's find out.
And honestly, not all of it works, but that's still part of the
Part
magic.
of the experimentation.
And is, right?
There are episodes
Yeah.
in the Clone Wars about Mugen tea, about poison Snapple, you know, but then there are episodes where Yoda goes to the center of the galaxy and speaks with these weird Force monk women things,
Yeah.
and you just go, what is going on? This is amazing. This is incredible.
Well, you got to bring Darth Maul back for Rebels, but it was a different vibe a little bit on that show.
Well,
right?
he's like around 55 or around his age. He's getting up there in age at that point.
Was tonally though, was the show skewed differently than Clone Wars?
Well, it was.
Yeah.
It was because it was sort of a smaller scale in the way that the original trilogy was smaller scale than the prequels. It's a more intimate story.
Sure.
And the good news, the coolest thing about Rebels was because we got away with Spider Maul in the Clone Wars and the fans congratulated us for it.
Yeah.
Then we knew, oh, well, now we have to do something weird.
Yeah.
The fans will be disappointed if he just shows up and it's just Darth Maul. Let's do something really fun.
Yeah.
So we created this idea of, Simon Kinberg wrote some really great stuff. Dave came up with some really great ideas, and then I just collaborated with them and made sure that the first whole passages of Maul, I just made sure to grip my voice, it gripped my throat. It's more red into his face as the episode continues, and he starts regaining himself because he was languishing on Malachor, and suddenly this kid shows up, and he's like, ooh, cool. But it was fun. It was fun to...
Were you sad to see that character go without spoiling too much? I think everybody knows, but
yeah, I said goodbye to Maul when Clone Wars was, and slowly release it through the episode, and then in the meantime, as he's canceled.
yeah.
And then he came back for Rebels, as he's regaining his youth, almost siphoning it off from Ezra. Like he started. I didn't know that was going to happen. So then.
Said goodbye again, and
we
then
killed him off and standing up straighter. The animators caught onto that idea. Joel Aaron brings Rebels, and I said goodbye again. But then the next day, I was performing him in Battlefront 2.
Right.
And then shortly afterward, got a call. I can't remember how advanced. It was a long time in advance of Solo coming out, saying, "Hey, Maul's in Solo." I'm like, "What? What is going on?"
I think you were hinting about that last year. You
Was
couldn't
I?
tell us anything, but there was some big things going on.
That was
super excited.
too long to keep that secret. I hated that.
Yeah.
That was not fun.
Were you happy with the way Maul was shown off in Solo?
Yeah, I loved it because we got to go back and forth between me and Ray Park. At first, I don't know how much. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I'll just tell you what happened.
Yeah.
At first, I ADR'd a performance that was already there.
Yep.
Then there was discussion over the elements that needed to change in the shoot.
Yeah.
And discussions with me and Dave Filoni and the producers and of Solo.
Did you do some performance capture for it?
No, because it was Ray's job to be the physical.
Yeah.
So once they said, okay, the ADR the performance, and they had to sort of sign off on it. Then they brought me into the studio again.
Yep.
And that was they're like, go entirely with your own timing, create the performance. We're going to have Ray lip sync the performance. But then they said, but then Ray is going to also do his own thing because he's got to bring his own element to it. And then you're going to come in and fill in the gaps and ADR his performance. So he's going to be working off you. You're going to be working off him.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully we're going to get Darth Maul when we put these things together. And Ray and I got on the phone and had whole talks about the character. Ray has been an awesome friend over the years and so supportive of what we've been doing. And he's watched all the animated stuff. So he wasn't surprised with what was going to be going on with the character. But he also wanted to hear my input. It was like, I didn't want to tell Ray Park how to do Darth Maul. but he did ask. He said, what episodes do you think I should focus on?
Oh, fantastic.
And I'm like, yeah, look at the Rebels. Look at all of them, but look at the Rebel stuff especially because he's a little. This will be just before.
Yes.
Or maybe 10 years. I don't know. I can't remember what time frame we came up with, and I know that Lucasfilm likes to keep that ambiguous.
Yeah.
But so then he studied up on those episodes, and then when I came back to ADR Ray, because he did diverge a little bit from some of the stuff that I laid down when he lip synced. And I was just happy because I saw him doing the stuff that the animators did in the show. Yeah. So I was like, well, there he is. There's the character.
That's amazing.
So when I finally saw it in the theater, I was so pleased because I felt like that was the character we'd been playing for, 9 years.
Did you go to the premiere?
Yeah.
And what was the response like?
They freaked out.
I bet they did.
The
yeah.
fans all screamed. What was fun though was you see the mechanical leg, and you hear him say yes, and you don't see his face yet. And I heard a few gasps in the audience. Yeah. Like there were some people who were ahead of they were like, wait a second. And then when he pulls the robe back, the entire audience started screaming, and then right behind me, Ewan McGregor is like punching Ray's knee.
No
way.
Just oh my God.
Just beating his leg up.
Yeah.
Ray and his family were right behind us, and
that's great.
It was cool. I got to be seated with all the Star Wars cast. It was funny because I went there with my friend, and they put us in this section, and my friend made some joke, and he's like, we're in the not VIP section, I see. And I'm like, look, it's just an honor to be here.
And then Obi-Wan Kenobi sits behind you.
Ewan McGregor and Mark Hamill and Peter Mayhew and Billy D. Williams, and I'm just like, still think it's the not very important section.
That's amazing.
I couldn't believe I was among that group of people because I was like,
of course, man.
I don't understand what's happening.
Look at how much you've contributed now.
I don't know.
I mean, honestly, like now Filoni's making the Mandalorian, which I can't wait for. Have you seen stuff on this already? You can't tell us anything. Are you in it?
Look, I'm going to say this, because I know you're going to ask me a bunch of questions that I can't answer. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not. But of course, that's exactly what I would say.
Of course.
If I was in it.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I'm not in it. No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
He's in it.
But then every other question you ask me, it's the Sith. They hide truth in their lies.
Yes. You play a lot of dark characters. We're going to get into that in a second here. But you are, and I want to make this the Star Wars chapter because there are many chapters of conversation we're going to have here. But you're about to go to Celebration.
Right.
And you said that you're going back to a galaxy far, far away, or galaxy far, far away or something.
At Celebration.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Something new? Can you give us a little teaser of maybe something new that you're going to be a part of in a galaxy far, far away?
Is that Star Trek or what is that?
It's Star Trek, yeah.
The one with
Picard. Are you on the Picard show?
I wish I was. That's so cool. Can you? I can't.
It's unbelievable.
I can't believe it's happening.
Like we are just living in this age of like anything we dream. Yeah, they're making that.
Well, you know what's funny is when Nemesis maybe, I think it's kind of widely known Nemesis maybe underperformed a little bit. Maybe it didn't quite hit the mark for what it needed to be.
Yes.
And I say that with love because I love Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yep.
But if you said to Patrick Stewart, "Don't worry, you'll be back as Picard in 15 years on a TV show," it would have seemed like such a downgrade.
Yeah.
But the industry has changed so much that a TV show is actually a tremendous upgrade storytelling-wise. Because now we're going to be able to spend 8 hours with this character that we love
in
so
the
much?
first season, which likely will lead to more.
Goosebumps. It's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I love this thing where we get indelible characters and people get to revisit them again. I mean, Star Wars is a great example of that.
Or what about Cobra Kai, man? When you see Ralph Macchio or William Zabka walk on screen, and you're like when I saw Ralph Macchio, I'm like, this is kind of like seeing Rocky walk on the screen.
And Rocky made me cry in Creed. He was so good.
Yes.
I was like,
it's an iconic film character that's you're seeing right there on the screen for the first time and saying lines you can't quote because you haven't heard them yet. I love the Cobra Kai show, by the way. I think William Zabka is destroying that.
Have you seen season 2 already? Have you
No,
got an early thing? Yeah, I
have you?
devoured season 1. No, I haven't seen season 2 yet. I'm freaking out. I can't wait for that. But I love how you really just avoided any confirmations or answering anything about Star Wars.
You see how I did that?
That was very good.
I learned that from Dave Filoni.
Good.
What you have to do is talk long enough and then send it into a different direction.
Okay, we're going to talk about some of the other, on-camera work, other acting work that you've got going on. But I wanted to take a break here for a second and talk about this incredible gift that you sent me This is a book that you are a part of with your brother.
Yeah.
It's the Dungeons & Dragons Art and Arcana of Visual History. And there's two other guys, Kyle Newman and John Peterson.
Yes,
and your
yes.
brother is Michael Witwer.
Yeah.
This thing is incredible.
It's got, like, if you strike someone in the back of the head, it's 1d8 damage, I believe.
You can kill somebody with this book, but you can
very
also
dangerous.
kill somebody with the amount of information you glean from this book.
Yeah.
Which I have to admit, and we were talking about this on we were texting. I'm not a huge D&D fan, mostly because I haven't made the time in my life to do it. But I love the lore building and the art and. I love the community aspect of it, like getting together with friends and doing this. Like I did play some D&D when I was really young, and I can't wait to get my kid into it. This book seems impossible to me, though. This seems like 20 years of work right
This
here.
wasn't easy. We had sort of a super team, right?
Yeah.
Kyle Newman identified that there's a zeitgeist moment happening for D&D, and in fact, he identified it right before it really started happening for like Critical Role and stuff
Yes,
like
yes.
that. And he said, we got to get together, and he said, let's do an art book. And his idea was, yeah, you know, there's so much D&D art, people have never seen it in its native form, let's go see it.
Yeah.
But
Show that camera right there, one of your
Sure.
favorite pages.
Sure.
that
Yeah,
you
yeah, I'm
love.
trying to find
There's
something.
so much beautiful
There's-
stuff. Dragons and,
well,
of
like,
course,
let's talk
orcs.
about,
and
let's talk about Beholders, which is like one of the most iconic, if I can find, I think I just paged through it. But the idea, here we go. But the idea that there's all these, when we started talking about the art book,
Yeah.
we started hitting on this idea that there are all these D&D fans. By the way, recent data suggests 40% women.
Right.
So all these new D&D fans who don't have any knowledge of the history of this game that they love so much,
Yes.
yet there are no casual D&D fans. You need to have some depth of knowledge to even play the game.
Right,
So
right.
we're like, we should tell that story.
Absolutely.
So like, if you look at this is sort of the evolution of the Beholder.
Hold it to that one, Blake. We'll cut to that one right there.
The evolution of the Beholder. Like, you know, you can see where the Beholder was back in 1975 up in the upper left-hand corner, and then you can see where it evolved in 1977, and so on and so forth. And you can watch, you know, as you flip through this book, it's meant to be kind of a time machine, a visual history. It was no longer an art book. I mean, it's an art book.
Yes.
But we added a lot of text to really take you through how this all evolved from this guy.
Which I really, really love and appreciate, because it is,
Yeah.
it's like encyclopedic in that way.
Yeah.
Like it's going to give me information that I will share with my kid, and then
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to go out and pick up, I don't know, I'll ask you which one to get, but one of the quotes that I saw in here, because obviously you heard from Gary Gygax and some of his friends and some
Dave
people that he
Arneson
worked-
and yeah.
But Gary Gygax had a comment in around the movie time frame. He said there was absolutely nothing special about the movie, including the special effects, which were terrible.
We're
He
talking
hated
about
it.
the one with Jeremy Irons?
Yeah, I think so. He's talking about the Dungeons and Dragons movie in 1999. So I just thought that kind of stood out to me. But
Just go and see it, guys. Go on Amazon and buy it tonight.
I just
oh boy.
really was blown away. There's lots of video game stuff in here. There's
There
lots of
is.
advertisements throughout the ages. And
Yeah,
incredible.
The whole thing is, it's been a hell of a ride, and we've felt that there was a real opportunity to let people know that this was a do-it-yourself project in a guy's basement. I mean, they assembled these little wood grain boxes
Yeah.
and mailed them off themselves, and that grew into Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons, which is, whether you know about it or not, is a cornerstone of geek culture.
Yeah.
Well, not even geek culture, of everything. For example, take the game Doom, which is like the first legit, hardcore, successful first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Those guys who developed Wolfenstein and Doom cite D&D as one of the major influences of getting into gaming to begin with.
100%.
So if you don't have D&D,
Yeah.
then you don't have Doom, then you don't have first-person shooters.
Dude, I can't tell you.
Think about. I mean,
I-
George R.R. Martin cites D&D as like a
Absolutely.
big influence for Game of Thrones. And anytime that someone says, "Hey, man, you leveled up on your so-and-so skill," that's a D&D reference,
Yeah.
even though you don't know it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd visit game studios, and no matter what they were playing, there was mad respect for pen and paper,
Yeah.
and everybody was citing that as some of the design kind of ethos that they would have and take and put into their
Yeah.
video game content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's,
for me,
by
it's
the way,
everywhere.
speaking of Star Wars, there's a picture of, because D&D grew out of, it was a bunch of war gamers who,
Yeah.
going back to H.G. Wells' Little Wars, and people who would have these immense Napoleonic army metal figures where they would lay them out and reenact historical battles.
Yeah.
And that was what they would do. They would reenact them, and they try to make it as historically accurate as possible. They try to have a rule set that made it historically accurate. And then Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson were like, what if we put orcs in there?
They must have been
What if we put
token
a dragon?
fans, right?
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and so it's all feeding
there
into
were.
each other.
Gygax was a Robert E. Howard guy.
Okay, cool.
Conan.
Very Conan, yeah.
It's right, yeah. It's like screw it talking and the Arabs have screw it.
I
We're
want
gonna
that
get
King
in there.
Conan movie, don't you?
Oh,
I want
God.
him to do it one more time, right?
Come on, let's do it.
Yes,
do
let's
it
do
now.
it.
Yeah, kill me.
It's so much fun.
But anyway, so it evolved into this game where you were not commanding armies, where every little metal piece represented one character, your character, and then eventually this even became optional. Maybe you don't use a metal piece. Maybe it's all spoken word, and it became this
So
incredible
cool.
storytelling thing.
And no wonder actors love it too,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You get
yeah.
to perform the whole thing, and if you've got a good dungeon master, you're in for a treat.
Jon Favreau, the guy who's Dave Filoni's one and only boss on The Mandalorian. Those two guys are making The Mandalorian for you, and Jon Favreau has recently said, he's like, a few years ago I wouldn't. I'm botching his quote, but he said a few years ago I wouldn't admit it, but D&D was a huge influence on my storytelling skills.
That's great.
Playing that game.
That's awesome.
So here it is. Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and all the people that worked on these games, including like the 14-year-old Tracy Lesh, high school student who made some of the first illustrations, stuff like that. These are like the grandparents of giant chunks of pop culture. They're like the most famous people you never heard of.
That's awesome.
So that's why we wanted to make them.
And there's a foreword from Joe Manganiello. How does that? I butchered his name. How do you say his last name? Manganiello.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
I barely know my name, and I don't know who you are.
Okay.
So let's.
All right.
No. Joe is a huge. He's a huge D&D guy, and he's so warm-hearted, and he definitely helped us in any way he could.
That's great.
In terms of getting the word out.
One thing I learned is that in 2012 and 2013 there was like a reboot, a drive to go back to the roots of Dungeons and Dragons.
They played so they arrived on something. The rules had always shifted and they'd evolved. And they evolved to a point where, honestly, if you were a certain type of gamer, they were really fun.
Yeah.
And if you were every other type of gamer, no.
Yeah.
It was called 4th edition. And again, worked for some people. I honestly will say, I don't think it was bad, but it was specific.
Right.
And D&D should be agnostic, inclusive. It should be like, play it.
Video games have that same thing too, right?
Right. It should, the D&D should be all about freedom, all about storytelling, all about play it the way you and your friends want to play it.
Yeah.
So what they ended up doing, sort of what we did, kind of, they went back with their development team and played every version of the rules in research for how to remake the game.
Wow.
Including the, ruddy little, hand assembled box set with these little, like, essentially photocopied pamphlets.
Yeah.
And they basically were able to distill down what is the heart of D&D, what is the beating heart of that game, what makes it work. And then they designed the newest edition of the rules, the 5th edition, which is, in my very serious estimation, the best version of D&D that we have ever had, including the originals, which are like near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
I go way back to the early 80s with the game. But like 5th edition, the final version, the one that you can go out and buy right now, and the one that they've been selling, for like 8 years now, 9 or something like that?
Yeah.
There's a reason they haven't changed the rules since they hit on that, because they got it right.
That's awesome.
And it was such a, so that's another thing that helps this sort of zeitgeist moment of D&D.
Yeah.
Not only YouTube, because if, when people used to say, how do you play D&D? It's hard to describe how to play it, but it's easy to demonstrate.
Yes.
So now people can just go up on YouTube and say, how do you play D&D? And watch it and go, oh, I get it, I can do that.
And it's such like the antidote to the digital life that we're all in, right?
Yeah.
It is like you have
Social.
to get together, and it's an
social.
analog experience.
Yeah, but also you can play it online if you want to get, there are Skype things
yeah,
where you can get them all
true.
lined up. There's a million ways to play the game.
Do you do that when you're on the road? Because you're shooting everywhere.
My friends are scattered across the globe, so yes, we do actually do that sometimes.
That's great.
But the whole key is, everything had to line up. Like, the geeks that grew up with it had to inherit Hollywood, which they did.
Yes.
YouTube,
Clearly.
YouTube had to be a thing. Matt Mercer and his crew had to do their thing. And they had to get the rules right.
Yeah.
The game had to be good.
Yeah.
All of those things happened at once.
That's great.
Which allowed us to put this book out.
Hugo
And,
Award-winning
Hugo
book.
Award nominee. We haven't found out if we won, but we're going to go to
So
Dublin
in
and find
the
out.
current Hugo Awards, which are when?
Which are August?
August. You'll
I
find out
think
if.
I'm gonna-
And so this book came out last year, then?
Yeah.
Or in
yeah.
the
It's-
last year?
or really not like, yeah, at the end of last year, I think.
Congratulations. That's
So,
amazing. And
yeah.
how did you guys divvy up because there's a lot of obviously art in this, but you have a lot of text in there. How did you divvy up the writing element?
Well,
there?
we each kind of carved out a fourth of the book, but then we also touched everyone else's sections.
So
we
you
all
edited
got
it and
together.
talked
We
about
all
it. That's
edited it
great.
together. And then I want to really credit. I mean, everyone. My brother Michael Witwer was like the project lead. He was the general who would call me up. My little brother, by the way.
Yeah.
He's like, get this done, get that done, write this, and do that, and get it all done by Monday. And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's my little brother, and I'm like, look at
Has
this.
he
He's
always
grown
been
up
like that?
No.
Okay.
I'm the boss. Yeah. But no, he's become the boss. And then Kyle Newman is the visual guy. You know, he's a director, so we had a really great visual sense. Kyle would obsess over details that were like, I don't care, Kyle. But then you would see what he would do with it, and you're like, oh, that's better. Thank God you're here.
Yeah.
And then John Peterson is like the Indiana Jones of D&D history.
Yes.
So he was the one that was traveling the globe, finding some of these old,
sweet.
because these pieces, it's not like they were all in an archive.
Yeah.
They've been spread out throughout the globe, and he had to locate, track down, and I think some people died.
Yeah.
But it's fun. We don't talk about
It's
it.
the Indiana Jones adventure.
Indiana Jones, look, you know, what happens when Indiana Jones, here's the lesson, guys. When Indiana Jones looks at something that you have and goes, that belongs in a museum, just give it to him.
Yeah. Because
Otherwise,
gonna be
you're going to die.
Yes.
And anyone that's with you trying to help you is also going to die. That belongs in a museum.
I have the art of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and so both of these books came at the same time, and it's great. And I love Spider-Verse. Have you seen that movie?
Dude, I'm so behind on everything because I've just been
you've been working like a dog. You got to see the movie. It's amazing. But the art book pales in comparison to this. And it doesn't have all of the scripted stuff. It doesn't, or the texted stuff. It doesn't give you all of the info.
Crush them.
It won't win a Hugo Award,
Crush.
even though it's good. All right, let's talk about acting again.
Yes.
Because you are in Vancouver for a specific reason. And when I found out that you were back in the city, I said, "Look, you got to come on the show."
Yes.
And you've been busy though. You've got this character named Ben Lockwood
Nice
on
guy.
Supergirl.
Very nice guy.
It has an element of being a nice guy,
Yeah.
but then super twisted and bad.
Sure.
Super. How do you tap into this? Because you get intense. Like you
Right.
turn on a dime. You got to smile, and then you look like you're going to kill somebody.
Well, I'm
super
I'm a
quick.
terrible racist, so that helps in playing that character.
So it's-
he
it's
is
method.
in fact he is in fact a racist, which is really unfortunate.
Yes.
I think the point of that character, as I understand it, he didn't start that way. He started as someone who really cared about everyone and had a very open mind about things. He's a mild-mannered history professor who, through the season, descends into becoming a really awful human being.
Yep.
And he keeps being confronted with moments where he can make the right choice or the wrong choice, and unfortunately, he's so hurt and he's so in pain that he keeps making the wrong choice. I think the theme of that character is, even if you've been hurt, even if you've been kicked around, you can't use that as an excuse to just hurt whoever you want.
Absolutely.
And blame whoever you want.
Or kill the way mercilessly.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
speaking of Star Wars, Tia from Rebels, I hurt her early in the season.
Yeah.
That's Sabine. That would be the second time I hurt her. Maul hurt her. But then again, Maul ruled her Mandalorian people, so let's just... Maybe I had the right to hurt her.
Yeah.
No, I don't...
You were the boss.
Yeah. But no, the Ben Lockwood character, it's interesting because it's... in the DC Comics history of that character, it's a character who was manipulated and then switches.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we do something like that in Supergirl or not. I'm honestly not giving a spoiler as to whether we do or not, but we wanted to plant some of that DNA in there, and really my idea is that at heart, this is. There's a seed of a good person in here, but he has been really corrupted.
Well, it's ripped from the headlines, and it's definitely touching on this the nationalism kind of movement that's out there, you know, and you can kind of see the fear of the other is what's driving this guy, and he's got some reasons for having this much hate and venom.
But everyone can do the mental gymnastics to think that they have reason to hurt someone else.
Totally.
That's, you know what I mean? If you choose to do it, everyone's got the mental facility to lie to themselves well enough and long enough to do something bad.
I love what they keep sort of putting these brushstrokes of the Donner Superman through this season, and they also have the
John Cryer.
Oh, it's so good. He's so fantastic, and we got
Taskmaster.
Yes, and Otis is in this show. There's a lot, man. Like they've really concocted. Supergirl is one of those surprising shows. I don't know if you've been watching the show, but every time I tune in, I'm like, wow, there's a lot going on here.
Well, and what's funny is I've now become friends with a lot of the writers, and I will say that a lot of the things that are happening in the show now, and even things that we're shooting now, I was in fact told 9 or 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, so I've read some stuff online where they're like, okay, a lot of the things that are happening are filling in holes from earlier in the season. Are they retconning, or did they always plan it? And I can tell you, in large part, maybe not 100%, but in large part, a lot of these things that didn't maybe necessarily make sense were because of what was going to happen later with the John Cryer character, which I choose to call him Lex Luthor, but he instructed me to call him Luthor. I guess that's what Gene Hackman did.
Yes.
And
he's pulling a little Hackman in there.
Oh, he is.
He is great, actually. He's doing an excellent job. Is he a good guy to work with?
Terrible person.
Yeah. Okay.
Terrible person.
That's
really,
clear.
really bad
we got
guy.
that out
Bad
there.
guys don't
We could
ever
just
trust that man.
Put that
He's
out
bad.
on the internet.
He owes me a
everywhere.
lot of money. No. He's. You know what's funny is I've only met him very briefly once, where we crossed paths at a costume fitting.
Yeah.
But we've talked on Twitter in direct message, so we've been throwing nice words back and forth, and he seems like a lovely guy. The rest of the cast tells me all about him, and he seems amazing. But more than anything, being a DC Comics fan, seeing the comic book version of Lex Luthor, that's a treat.
It's really cool.
He kind of
with the outfit, the power outfit, and everything.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
If you're not watching Supergirl, you got to do it. I mean, I know it's crowded, the Arrowverse, and can you believe it? I mean, you were on Smallville, you were Doomsday,
right?
And that was an incredible show too. But that sort of proved that there could be a big DC universe, and then Arrow came out and was a big hit again.
You know what gets me is that, like on Smallville, like you lead up the whole season to a big climactic fight, but the realities of production is all we could do.
Yeah.
All we had money for was pick up a car, throw the car, super punch, fight over.
Yeah.
That's all you could really afford at the time.
Yeah.
So then I arrive on Supergirl and I'm thinking, yeah, I know how this goes, and I read the stuff in the script, this is not going to happen. And then you see the episode, and it all happens. And you're like, what is, Melissa's flying around and she just threw the building fell down, and what is going on?
I mean, they're pulling from the Man of Steel action stuff that Zack Snyder was doing.
Insane.
Heroes punching each other in the air. I watched Martian Manhunter.
Crazy. David Harewood.
Yeah, who's incredible in the show.
He's awesome.
Catches Supergirl who's falling and then lands, and you just believe all of it.
It's kind of really incredible what we can do now with our technology.
Yeah.
And also, I just credit the producers so much for being able to wrangle a show like that.
Yeah.
We did an episode where it was Kevin Smith directed it.
Yep.
And it's where Ben Lockwood and Manchester Black played incredibly by David Ajala. He was so good.
Yeah.
And we finally come to heads, and he comes to my house, and he goes, "You're Agent Liberty," and I'm saying to my wife, I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. He's crazy. I have no idea. So, but there were all these little pieces.
It was just like that.
I was there. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm totally drunk.
Changes the whole tone.
I'm drunk. He's drunk. I'm drunk. We're all drunk. No, but there was this thing where there were pieces that I felt were missing to get us from this point to this point.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Kevin Smith, I'm like, are you concerned about this piece and that piece? I mean, is there going to be like a second unit to shoot these pieces? And I'm thinking to myself, there's not going to be, because we don't have time, because they were extensive pieces.
You got 9 days
and
to shoot a show.
I pitched these things. I'm like, don't you think we need a piece for this and a piece for that? And then this happens. And he goes, yeah, man, I don't know when we get to shoot that. Then I see the episode.
Great Kevin Smith
Yeah,
impression,
man,
dude. That's
man.
amazing.
Yeah, with Kevin Smith, the whole key is just put your hands out and make sure it doesn't sync up with what you're saying. And just in what you're saying, the rhythm of what you're saying is different than the rhythm of your hands.
Wow.
So, yeah. I can't do Jay yet, though. But when I saw the episode, all those pieces were in the episode. They shot them. I'm like, what? But there's laser beams and then there's explosion. But these pieces were big. How did you... And then I talked to the producer. He's like, oh, yeah, I just thought we needed, like, pieces like that. I hadn't even talked to this guy. And he's like, yeah, I thought it needed pieces like that, so I went and shot it. And you're like,
I guess
how? Like your best Shatner. Like, how? Spawn.
I guess they are so competent. I mean, that's what it comes off when you watch all those Berlanti shows. Like, they're way overproduced.
Dude.
You know, like that you cannot fathom how they can get that done in that short a time without much action and that many effects.
It's incredible. From a production standpoint, I've been on the show all year. I still don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I will say this. I don't know how Melissa does it.
Right.
Because we've seen movies where people are on flying harnesses.
Yeah.
And she had to train for a long time before they even shot on the show 4 years ago.
Yes.
So you have all these actors who have done, you know, Christopher Reeve flew around, you know, all these actors fly around. What's the problem? Well, the problem is it really takes a lot out of you to be in those harnesses, and it wears on your body. I don't know if there's another human being, actor or actress, who's done it for 4 years straight.
Right.
And Melissa does it with a smile.
At that degree, too, right? Because it's another level of believability.
Exhausting herself. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And she's doing all these, acrobatics because she's been trained in doing it.
Yeah.
But she does it all the time.
Could they have cast a better person for that
No.
role? Like, honestly,
No.
like even apart from the physical stuff, just
No.
what she exudes, it's incredible.
It's like watching. It's like when you saw Christopher Reeve as Superman. You're like, it's
Agreed.
like he walked right out of the comic book. When I met Melissa, I'm like, because I read Supergirl, and so I'm like, oh my God, it's Supergirl. And then she would say something. I'm like, oh my God. There was this one thing in the episode in 403 when Ben Lockwood. There's a brief little scene with Melissa, and she wasn't there originally when we shot it. So we shot my side with a double, and the double was doing stuff, and it seemed right enough, and she was being kind of confrontational because it was a confrontation.
Yes.
But then Melissa comes in like a week later, and we shoot some of it again to shoot Melissa's side and some other pieces of me, and she does the confrontation the way Supergirl would, with a sense of humor and a twinkle in the eye and a very like, hey, come on, what's the problem?
Right.
What's the deal?
Right.
Come on, everything's cool. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna kick your ass. It was, hey, come on, relax. And it was like, whoa, this is amazing. What a great take on that.
Yeah, honestly, none of it would work if it wasn't sold like that.
And frankly, with the hours that the cast puts in, I don't know that any of it would work if Melissa wasn't such a good leader and a good example.
Did you have any time? I know that you guys are cranking busy when you're up here. Did you have time to meet the Flash cast or the Arrow cast? Or
been at a dinner with them. I bumped into a few people here and there, but nothing concentrated. And I've been flying back and forth between LA and Vancouver a lot. So
okay, we've got to talk about this because this is coming out in like imminently.
Yes,
you can listen to the single right now.
Yeah,
right? Which is Lloyd Dobler.
Lloyd Dobler.
Yeah, Lloyd Dobler. You did a song dedicated to what was the movie?
Say Anything.
Say Anything. Incredible movie. John Cusack.
John Cusack.
Yes,
He was one of my favorite characters of all time in movies.
So you wrote a song for him.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, the idea. I never like to talk about what songs are about, but I'm going to say this. Years ago, a friend of mine, I did something where a girl I knew, I can't remember if she needed, I think she was cold in her office, so I think I brought her a space heater or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had kind of a crush on her. This didn't never win anywhere.
Yeah.
But then I immediately called my friend. I'm like, dude, I've only known her for a few weeks. And I just showed up and gave her a little, it's a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
But it was a dumb little, what was I doing? And he goes, man, the difference between a stalker and not a stalker, the difference between a stalker and a romantic guy is whether the girl likes you or not. And that struck fear into my heart because immediately I had pictures of Lloyd Dobler with "In Your Eyes" with the radio.
Yeah, and if she didn't like him,
that is the most horrifying.
Yes,
he's out there right now.
It's a serial killer movie.
I am complete in your eyes. See the doorway. So that was sort of the impetus to write the song Lloyd Dobler because, I thought that was an interesting thing to revisit and say, maybe guys, let's not do those things and let's maybe hold back a little bit.
Absolutely.
And let's watch our step.
How much
Don't
we
show
put
up
out
outside our window with the rain.
Yeah, that's never going to go.
I don't know if it's
only
gonna
works
go
in the
well.
movies.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everybody knows this, but you're a legit musician and you did a ton on this.
I don't know if I'm a legit.
Well, you've got an album here, and I've got. I was listening to some of the YouTube stuff, and you've done some concerts, and you've got this. This is your second or third album.
Second.
So Crash
so
Jones.
remember I said Amy Beth Christensen created the artwork for Force Unleashed. Well,
Yes.
she's probably on the planet Earth the person who has drawn me more times because she had to create Starkiller and all kinds of.
Amy's work?
It's Amy's work.
And this is the other thing that's just amazing. Blake, cut to this on this cam. It's just incredible. And it has this, I love the name too. I think the Crash Tones name, it's one of those names where you think, well, they've been around forever. I know that band.
It's right. I wanted to make you believe the lie that it's a real band, but in fact, it's my imaginary band. That's
and so you sing, and do you play all the instruments?
all the instruments except drums.
Wow.
A guy named Timmy Soldog Hibben laid down some really, really great percussion, and not just drums, but also the entire percussion section. And here and there had some friends come in. If anyone watches Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
my buddy Glenn Howerton comes and guests on a track called "It Came from a Man's World."
That's awesome.
And the thing is, the Crash Tones. I called it the Crash Tones because ultimately, every song is kind of a different genre, and in a lot of cases, the genres invade upon each other
Yes.
in the same song.
Yes.
So you'll be hearing something that sounds like an R&B thing, and then a metal riff will come in, and
Yeah.
then suddenly you'll hear a sort of a 1950s like,
Yeah.
like
you hear the actor in there, which
weird,
is great.
weird stuff. So I was talking about, I'm like, I want record scratching, and a friend of mine said, that's really, people don't do that anymore. That's past. It's going to seem tacky if you put it in there. And I said, well, then I'll just have Glenn do it with his mouth. Because Glenn, back when we went to college together, Dennis from Always Sunny, we would call each other up and be like, Glenn, and we would do that to each other. So I'm like, Glenn, I want you to do that throughout a whole song. So he just goes, and he does it incredibly well.
great.
You would not. The thing is,
He's been training. He's committed to it now.
He's a Juilliard trained actor. We had a class on this, it was a DJ class, but we couldn't afford record players, so we had to do it with our faces.
That's awesome.
But the whole thing with Glenn is that he's got a great sense of humor about it. As you can see, that we try to have a little bit of a sense of humor about our rock music here
That's great, man.
at the Crash Tones.
I got to tell you, I
So-
had it on my record player at home, and my kid was playing. She was building a fort.
Oh, there's a lot of swearing
Yeah,
in this.
and then and it was cranked because you can't listen to this, and so I had to like take it down, and then I turned it off. But it's incredible, man. It's a
thank
fully fleshed out, all kinds of different genres and lots of different kinds of sounds out of this album.
That's the idea. The
great.
idea is that I wanted to experiment a little bit, and again, I think the stories of like Gary Gygax making D&D and hell, Glenn making Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I mean, I was there when they all just got cameras together. I camera operated one of their pilot episodes.
No way.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because it
Wow.
was just a bunch of people
We
in a
just
dirty.
had East Side Games was in, and they're working on the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia video game.
There's a video game.
Yeah, they're working on the game right now. Darth Maul. over
No!
there. Shout out to Darth Maul. His team is working on the
Dude!
Philadelphia game.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I just hung out with him the other day. He probably knows about it, but he didn't tell me.
Yeah.
That son of a bitch.
Yeah. It's all interlocked.
But it's like
all of it.
the idea.
And Sam's in all of it. I told
he's
you,
the
I
center.
wasn't bullshitting. He's in everything.
But the thing that me and my friends like a lot is just making stuff.
Yeah.
Glenn likes making his own shows. I like making the book and the
Yes.
record and all this stuff. And I think when you do it all yourself, that's honestly what makes it so bad.
Yeah.
And really low quality. The whole 'cause I kind of think about this as like when a child hands you a crayon drawing,
Yeah.
that child didn't go to like a Lucasfilm artist and have them fill in the background, and then they make the big smiley face and like, look, Dad, I made this for you. No, they made the whole thing.
Well, Sam.
So that's why I wrote and recorded and produced and mixed and did it all.
And this
So
is
the-
why you're
this-
having the career that you're having, though, because a lot of actors would just say, "I'm just going to act. What do I say? Give me my lines." But you are not that person. You are. How do we make make this better? How
Give
do
me
we
my
improve
money.
This.
Right.
Yeah. And when do I get paid? Right. We all know that about you.
Yeah.
No, but there's this attitude of how do I contribute to make this thing better, and how do I get more creative win out of this for myself?
How do I take control from
Yes,
others
yes.
and take the power for myself?
Well, you always play the bad guys, though, and the bad guys ultimately get killed. So you got to play a good guy pretty soon here. Is there a good guy in your future?
No.
Is there a good guy in my future? I mean, there There might be. I'm in a state of perpetual confusion right now.
Yeah.
So I know I'm working on some stuff, and oh no, there is a good guy in my future, Deacon St. John. Days
of course.
Gone.
Oh my God.
Let's talk about Days Gone.
We didn't even get into the video game stuff. We went all over the map here.
Well, let me just say real
Yes.
quick, that game's coming out April 26th.
The same day your album is.
Right. Well, my
Right.
album's actually going to come out officially a week and a half later, but
Okay.
the vinyl is going to go on sale on the 26th. And Days Gone, man, I've been working on that game for almost 4 years.
Awesome.
I think, and I am so excited to see it happen because first of all, this is all running on like PlayStation hardware.
Yes.
All this
I tried to
mocap.
get us code today, by the way. I reached out to Sony. I said, "Can we get some code so we can play it together?"
Yeah,
but
so
it's not quite ready.
What's
to
so
send for that.
so interesting about this game, honestly,
Oh,
for
look at
me.
this happy thing.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Nothing bad is going to
It's
happen.
nothing bad at
You're
all.
having a beautiful wedding.
Yeah.
It's so lovely. Oh.
The shoot for this,
Oh,
because
no.
we shot 6 hours of cinematics for this. If that
Yes.
gives you any idea of the scale of the game, it's quite large. And this is all sort of from the very fertile imagination of John Garvin, which I didn't get him at first,
Yeah.
or how they work.
Yeah.
So I arrived expecting, where's the script, man? And I'm going to create the character. And we'd shoot a scene, and it was like maybe like Tango and Cash and very quippy and this and that. And then we'd come back, and then we'd shoot another version of that scene, and then we'd come back and shoot it again. And I was like,
What is this?
well, and the thing is, man, like, if it was just my voice, I think I would have been like, all right, I'll roll with it. But because my face was going to be up there,
Yeah.
I have to confess.
First time ever in a video game.
That's the first. Days Gone was the first time they decided to use the actor's likeness.
I think we got to make that a recurring
Yeah.
thing every time you're on the
It was
show.
the first time we invented that. No, it was so I got. I'm going to confess this publicly. I got very moody in say almost the first 9 months of working on that game because I didn't quite understand what's
there's
going on.
pressure on you too, though, right?
And I'm playing a moody character.
Yeah.
And so and what it was, and it wasn't until we'd shot enough and I understood John enough and understood what that he said, dude, you know that we've built, this is the way we shape this. We've built this all into the schedule. We're experimenting.
Right.
And then when he said that, it was like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? How big is this game? And he's like, well, it's big. I'm like, what's the budget? I won't tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So once I realized that it wasn't like, oh, we're losing light, we're burning the film, like it wasn't like we had to get everything right.
It was a Sony scaled project.
Dude, I've
Yes.
never been on a Sony scale
Yes.
project, so
Yeah.
I truly did not understand the creative latitude that he had to shape that reality. So we would literally go around and shoot until we settled on a tone that he instinctively knew was right and that I was comfortable with and that Sony, frankly, was comfortable with. And once we did that,
Were they
started
rendering
going,
everything? Were they like making
Sort of.
Okay.
You'd be dressed up in this tight outfit, this mocap outfit, and
Yeah.
you look like a complete douchebag. And you're wearing a helmet cam, and the cam is here, which, by the way, so anytime that I was moody on set or like
was
was
all
angry at something,
captured.
I looked like a real douche. I'm like, what's going on here? And I looked like a dick, which really destroys your power in trying to intimidate people. But so, I remember John early
You're
on.
having Christian Bale moments.
Oh,
when you're-
dude.
You're dressed in a condom.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Oh, it's off the set, you prick. Yeah. Oh, we're done. Professionally, we're done. I did have a moment like that. It was great. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. Ask John. And it was over a stunt and a misunderstanding of whether I would do the stunt or not.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm doing it in the mocap outfit. So difficult actor in a mocap outfit. But
That's
what's
a show right there.
Oh,
That's-
it's a sitcom.
Totally.
Yeah,
one
look,
of-
I'm sweating telling you this, so you know it's the truth, because it's uncomfortable to admit this. But so what it was like understanding that we had the latitude to explore this world and to sort of shape it, and John had the latitude to shoot something, watch it, see if it worked, go back to the drawing board if it didn't.
Yep.
And then what got really exciting is when we locked in on something, and then it was like full steam ahead on that idea. And what was cool about that is we checked out the other avenues. So when John settled on it's this, there was no need to experiment too much because it's like, no, the character is this.
Well,
no, this is how it goes, and this is the tone of the game. And the tone of the game, I got to tell you, is extremely adult.
Yeah.
It used to, when we first started shooting, it was actually rather funny, actually, and I'm not kidding you. Like, it was very quippy.
Yep.
And then we found a way to fit very realistic kind of grim gallows humor into this very realistic world. But the whole thing John settled on, that he just kept hammering home, is he's like, no. What would it really be like? And I'm like, well, I mean, like these lines. He's like, forget the lines.
Yeah.
Say something like it. I don't care what comes out of your mouth as long as you're telling the truth. And he would get really passionate
That's
about
awesome.
this. And so once the actors kind of got that memo, well, I stopped being a douchebag and became very excited by what we were creating. But dude, again, the learning curve of just not, because if ever I'm on a set and people don't know what they're doing, you go, as an actor, you go, I'm going to get blamed for this. It's my face up there.
Yes.
But that wasn't what was going on here. They were like, dude, what's the problem?
Well,
Like, we're shaping this.
Truthfully, Bend is trying to prove what they can do here too, right? This is the biggest scale for them too.
Yeah.
And this is a team that has done incredible work in the past, really dependable, awesome work at a different scale. And it's also post Last of Us, so all of those.
Well, and that was the whole thing.
Yes.
How do you make this different than The Last of Us?
Yes.
Because they do live there is some overlap there, but not as much as people would think.
Right.
And what I find so gratifying is that we had iteration time.
Yeah.
We really had, like, for example, if there was something where John would go, we're not quite getting the emotional connection with this character, so here's a few more scenes and some extra side missions.
Wonderful.
And you go, how is it, like, the project started with the scope of like this and only ever got bigger.
Yeah.
Any video game I've ever worked on, the scope starts like this,
Yes.
and it gets whittled down, and you hope.
Force Unleashed 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. Force Unleashed 1 started like this.
Yes.
And then, like every game, gets whittled down. But with Force Unleashed 1, this was enough.
Yeah.
Force Unleashed 2 started here, and we were like, if we can do everything, it'll be enough. But then it got whittled down. You're like, this isn't enough.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's not enough.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
much cool.
So with Days Gone, that was my expectation.
Cool.
And that's why I had this sort of like, I don't know, kind of like it's a reaction of like, we got to get this right. And John is like, we get it right when I say it's right. And
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
who are we working for? He's like, Sony. I'm like, what does that mean? And I found out what that means, and I've just never been on a project that was so supported by
They
such
are
a
swinging, man. Like Sony is like trying to make a home run out of everything they put out, and it's really like they're trying to move the needle and the cultural impact of the titles that they put out there, like Spider-Man and God of War. And I wasn't a huge Detroit Become Human fan, but they're just killing it right now.
It's really cool. And John Garvin, the freedom he gave the actors on the set to, if we came up with a moment or if we improvised something. I mean, again, he was that whole thing keeps ringing in my head, because not a lot of writers or writer-directors will be as generous as to say, no, man, I don't care about the line so long as you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Say something like this.
Yes.
And if there was an important line, he's like, no, I need that exactly the way it is.
Yeah.
That's designed to be and flow in this way, and there's information in there we need. But other stuff, he's like, I want to be surprised.
See, I talked to to John and some of the other guys from Bend about you because they watched our last interview, and I could tell that they had mad respect for your collaborative instincts as well, and that's exactly what they wanted. And quite frankly, they don't put the actor's face on the box unless they have that full sort of commitment.
They should have fired me. I don't know what they were thinking.
Come on.
No, but again,
and it's good for honestly, it's good for games too, that you have this recognizable stature and this face and this commitment, and like you got your own Twitch stream, and like you're in on this, and they're putting you in that position. I think it's fantastic for the business.
Well, it's what was great about it is that they all knew. They knew when they were iterating, they knew when they were experimenting, and then they knew when they were developing and going full forward. And so once I caught on to how they were working, I had so much fun. So it was like 9 months of real discomfort.
Yeah.
And then like 3 years of just incredible fun. And also the cast, really, really great folks. In fact, we have we got Courtney Draper, who's got a little bit of a history of video games, Bioshock Infinite. And then we have an incredible group of people. We got Phil Morris, the Martian Manhunter from Smallville.
Awesome.
We've got Jason Spizak, who was
Are they all
Lux Bonteri in the
Are they?
Clone Wars.
Is it their faces too? Are they doing that with
Some of
everybody?
them.
Some of them. Okay.
Some of them. But yeah, really, really great cast, really fun. We definitely had a lot of fun, and to say that you had any fun at all in a game that has such grim, challenging elements, it speaks well of Sony Bend.
I can't wait. I'm getting the review code very soon, and it's another single-player game, which I think is another great decision on Sony's part and Ben's part.
Yeah.
I can't wait to play as you in another video game. It's crazy. But I do want more Force Unleashed, and I want to see Starkiller. And how do we make that happen, right? What petition do we have to sign?
Write your congressman. I would surely love to go back to Starkiller. I think at this point where canon has steered since then, it would have to be some sort of a reimagining, I think. But I would kill to play that character again.
Absolutely. Get Dave Collins back in there.
I would kill Dave Collins.
You would kill him?
Because he tried to kill me several times.
Yes,
it's only fair. Proxy was constantly trying to kill the apprentice.
Jamie's got a question.
For people looking to get in, what skills have you learned along the way that you would recommend to those people?
For people looking into getting, which industry?
See, this is the challenge. In what? Because he's done everything.
Yeah.
Art, say video game, voice acting.
Make sounds. Make sounds. I talked to this one actor at one point, and she said she wanted to be a voice actor. But whenever I would be like with my friends and we'd be making dumb voices at each other, she'd get kind of irritated. And you go, maybe you just be an actor. I don't think you want to be a voice actor, because the people that I know who want to create the most expressive voice, the reason they learn how to do that is because they find it fun.
Yeah.
To just sit around and make voice.
Yes.
And make a sound.
Yes.
You know, or like me and my friends, even the friends that aren't voice actors, will be watching a show, you know, on HBO, a documentary about a very scary person, and we just try to do the voice of Robert Durst in it. You know, you're like, what? You know, we just are always trying to do, we're mimicking things.
Because they don't get a cast to just be one character normally on these animated shows.
True, they definitely
do
need
a bunch
people
of
that can shapeshift a little bit. But
Yeah.
moreover, the important thing, and it never hurts, even if you're a film or TV actor, never hurts to have an expressive voice.
Yeah.
And to be able to convey things through your voice. So, you know, and there is training. There's voice and speech classes out there that gives you an awareness of what sounds you're making. I went to drama school, so that was very useful to me.
Awesome. I've got one more question because we do have to wrap it up, but this one is kind of Star Wars related. You've had a and I'm gonna riff off of Nur's question here. Question for Sam: thoughts on the Fallen Order teaser? This is the new game from Respawn coming. Have you seen anything? Are you in it?
The thing about John Garvin is that he created a world that is so detailed, and it really is. Like, he's got their like groups that imitate the Freakers, and the Freakers are not zombies.
He's
They're
in it.
infected.
I think he's excited.
They're infected.
Yeah,
humans.
we're gonna find out some cool stuff on Saturday, and Sam might be in it. And you've what's wonderful is that even like you've had the Clone Wars and the Rebels stuff, and you got to play Darth Maul and Solo, but even in Episode 7 and Episode 8 and Star Wars Battlefront, like your voice keeps coming up in all these awesome places.
That's simply because the people that are inside the people that are in the organization, like Matt Wood, who's General Grievous's voice, but he's also the heir apparent to Ben Burt, the sound designer who, that high tension
genius.
wire, and he creates the R2D2 sounds and stuff like that. Matt Wood is basically his trainee, in the same way that Dave Filoni is George's trainee.
Wow.
His Padawan, if
Right.
you will. And so Matt Wood takes a tremendous amount of pride in getting the details of the sounds correct, and then also branching off in new directions. So that's how all the voice actors get in there as well, because we know what the soundscape of Star Wars is. Like, for example, there's a moment in Rogue One I'm very proud of. And it's not me and David Collins constantly because we put Easter eggs of two stormtroopers talking in every Star Wars movie now. You can look for it now, but there's always a conversation that's happening between two stormtroopers, and it's always the same conversation. And you can look for it in all the new Star Wars movies. It's in there every time.
And it's you and Dave.
And it's me and Dave.
That's great.
I'm not going to say anything more than that. But there's a moment in Rogue One that I'm really proud of, and it was when they attack the base, the Imperial facility where the scientists are, the rainy planet, which was what was it called?
Galen's.
Galen's, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He stole your name, by the way.
He did, and he stole my uniform too.
Yeah.
But there was a moment where you cut to all these, the rebels attack, and the X-wings are flying in, and all the Imperial officers are running and screaming, And then you cut over, and there's all those Imperial gunners with those weird shaped helmets.
Yeah.
And I said to Matt Wood, I'm like, they had such a THX 1138 George Lucas experimental thing going on with some of the stormtroopers. They were like kind of robotic in their voices. There was something, they were human, but they were drugged or something. It's kind of like in THX, the robots who are running after you, and they're like, slow down, we're only here to help you. and the stormtroopers have a little bit of that, stop right there. They don't get more excited than that.
Right,
and
right.
And then the Imperial gunners, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you get, and I pitched this to Matt Wood, I'm like, you get all this chaos in the hangar bay, and the X-Wings are coming in, lost the fighters, and they're launching TIE fighters, and then you go over to the Imperial gunners, and you just hear, XX259.35, and I just started recording me saying jargon in this very just like robotic voice, but just talking everything like this, and Matt Wood did exactly. He's like, totally, because the Empire, there's something dehumanizing about the Empire, and if we honor the soundscape as put out in the Star Wars movies, the originals, you'll get that same creepy feeling about the Empire, that it's doing something, that these people who work for it are losing their humanity.
I love Rogue One, that movie. Every time I see it, I just love it a little bit more. You know,
that movie.
Incredible. That is why Sam Witwer is in everything that you see. This man obviously cares about what he's putting out into the world. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Dude, and thanks for letting me run over. That was
that was fantastic. This is exactly what we wanted. Wasn't he great? A round of applause for Sam Witwer. And you have an open invitation. Anytime you want to come and be on the EP set, you can come.
Indeed, I shall return.
All right, my friend.
Awesome.
Thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new EP live for you. Our guest will be Trisha Gray, who has got lots of fantastic stories to tell us from the video game industry. Thanks for watching, everybody. Play forever.